Welcome to everyone, and very excited about this month's meeting, and we're excited that you all were able to join us. Um, this meeting is definitely we're going to talk about some of the resources we have and some of the things that we're doing in the office to assist businesses here in the city of Portsmouth. Um, I did want to start by saying thank you for the feedback and the comments that we received from the last session, and hopefully you can see that we have heard you. One comment we consistently heard was folks wanted to be able to see everyone on the call and really feel connected. So we have done that. We've made sure that you can participate and interact and see who else is on the call and on the phone. So anytime you want to show your video, you're fine. Again, just want to remind you to kind of stay on mute if you can, and we look forward to questions at the end. Hopefully everyone can hear me clearly as well. I don't talk too much. Um, but this morning we're going to talk about business resiliency, and that's a new. I'm not gonna say it's a new term, but it's a term that's used differently now. Originally, business resiliency you talked about a little bit when it talks about flooding, things of that nature. But now we're talking about business resiliency when it comes to how businesses have been able to continue operations amid this any type of disruption, but more specifically this pandemic that we have going on right now. We know it's still affecting everyone. It's still out here. So hopefully everyone's still wearing their mask, being safe, washing their hands, things of that nature. But we understand that businesses need resources to get through this pandemic and get through this disruption. So this morning we're going to talk about some of those resources. More specifically, we're going to talk about our COVID-19 business recovery grant that we have here in the city of Portsmouth. Mr. Armand Smith will talk about the Economic Development Authority Local Incentive Program, or what we like to call the LIP program. Mr. Donahue will talk about the Port Host Community Revitalization Fund, and then I'll finish it off by talking briefly about the Enterprise Zone. Now, we have it's going to be a lot of questions, and let me be clear. We're going to kind of give a broad brush of these incentives. What we will be having probably in the January, February timeframe is an actual incentives workshop. That will be about a half a day. I'm hoping it will be in person, but more than likely it will be virtual, so it may not even be that long. But we really want to take a deep dive at that point into the incentives that we have and really lay out everything that's involved with obtaining resources through the city. Some common themes about our resources. Our resources are reimbursements. Virginia is really the kind of the show me state, if you will, when it comes to incentives. You do the work, show me the investment, show me the job creation, and then we'll give you some money back. These reimbursements are normally based off verifiable expenses or verifiable actions. Again, whether it's capital investment, whether it's job creation, a little bit of both. Sometimes if we're reimbursing folks for doing certain work from a standpoint of our investment program or local incentive program, we have to have some type of documentation that, of how much things cost. You have to be in good standing. So you gotta, taxes have to be paid. You have to have a valid business license, things of that nature. And it's a lot of paper. And that's because, especially when you talk about things like the COVID and the CARES Act money, we have to have a paper trail. We have to be able to show and really indicate what we're reimbursing you for. So those are kind of four things that when we look at some commonalities between all of these resources, those are what you're going to see. So we'll start off with the COVID-19 business recovery grant. Now, we're very excited and very fortunate that City Council decided to allow us the opportunity through the Economic Development Authority to provide assistance utilizing the CARES Act funding. What we have right now, we've made some tweaks and changes to the program. So right now, from now through October 31st, which is the end of the program, businesses are eligible for up to $10,000 in reimbursable costs. And those are fixed costs. things such as lease payments, things such as PPE for your employees, responding to COVID in some way, shape, or form. Those things necessary to keep your business going, those verifiable costs, we are looking to reimburse you up to $10,000 for those costs. We also have what is called a statement of need opportunity. So if someone were to, or a business were to directly respond to COVID-19 and the pandemic. So for example, if you have a company that maybe there's an environmental company that now they've switched gears and now they focus on cleaning PPE equipment and ventilators and things of that nature to make them reusable. That type of company that is expended or spent a large amount of money, up to $50,000 to respond to this pandemic, we are allowing and reimbursing up to $50,000 based on that statement of need. Because there are businesses out here that are making PPE. There are businesses that are delivering food, meals, and things of that nature to the citizens of Portsmouth. So we want to make sure that, and around sometimes even around the state and around the country, we want to make sure that those businesses have an opportunity to take advantage of our grants, and we want to, in some way, shape, or form, show our thanks for what they do. We're very excited about this. Again, we have a total of $1 million. So we think that's a sizable amount of money to give out. I will tell you, it's a process. So that process, once we receive your application, which we like to receive electronically through our website, and all of the forms are on our website at accessportsmouthva.com. But if you go to our website, as soon as you get there, there's a link for our COVID grants. There's some extensive paperwork we've got to have. Everything from, again, your verifiable costs to your business license to your articles of incorporation as far as your business is concerned. It's a process, and it takes about 2 to 3 weeks from the time we receive your application, look at it, review it, and then have the money sent to you. And we even have it set up where it's very efficient, and we send it via EFT. So we're excited about that, and at the end of the call here, we'll have opportunities for questions. But we're very excited about this program. Again, it ends October 31st because we have to report back to the state by the end of the year. Next, we'll have Mr. Armand Smith talk about our local incentive program.
And thank you, Mr. Moore. I want to say good morning to everybody on the call. Thank you all for joining the webinar this morning. As Mr. Moore said, this is our EDA local incentive program. We're going to go through the grants that make up this program. First grant is the Facade Improvement Grant. So again, it's up to $25,000. So the way it works is, in order to unlock the $25,000, you have to do $50,000 in eligible expenses. Now these expenses are reimbursable. So you have to spend the money first before you can get reimbursed. Some of the eligible uses for this grant are exterior lighting, exterior painting, any type of awning, architectural details, as well as anything that really will improve and enhance the exterior and the facade of the building, hence the name, the Facade Improvement Grant. Again, these are reimbursable. So you get approved first, you show us the amount that you've spent, whether it's $25,000 or however much. If you spend $50,000, you get $25,000 back. You spend $25,000, you get $12,500 back. So you get half of what you spent as a result of these grant programs. Want to move on to the interior build out grant. Another grant, again, moving to the interior. Eligible uses for the grant include painting, lighting, flooring, any type of build out. So if you're moving walls, if you're doing any electrical, mechanical, plumbing work, that's all included in the interior build out grant. So again, up to similar process to the Facade Improvement Grant, up to $25,000. So in order to get the $25,000, have to spend $50,000 in eligible expenses. So you get approved, you spend the money first, and then we reimburse you for half the amount. Third program we have, Safety and Security Grant. A little bit different setup than the Facade Improvement and the Interior Build Out Grant, in that it's only up to $2,000, but you take the matching out and you can get the $2,000. So if you show us $2,000 of eligible expenses, you get $2,000 back. Most people use the program for security systems, security cameras. You can use it for fire suppression system as well, but most people use it for security improvements up to $2,000. So if you show us $2,000 eligible expenses, you'll get $2,000 back. Whereas the facade improvement and interior build out grant, you would get half that. So if you did in the facade improvement grant, for example, $2,000, you'd get $1,000 back. Want to touch on a little bit about some of the projects that we've utilized this on. Bangkok Garden, really excited about them coming downtown, really taking a high visible corridor. This is an example of the facade improvement grant. Again, this was a building that was sitting vacant for about 10 years. So you see the improvement they've made in the exterior and the interior as well, really revitalized it. You go on to Brazilian Best Granite, which was in the old Zoom Cleaners store in the Airline Business Park off of Airline Boulevard. Again, you see the work they've done on the interior. And it's also important to mention that all 4 of these properties utilize all of the grant programs. So they utilize the facade improvement grant, interior build out grant, and the safety and security grant. So you really see when you put it all together and get back that $52,000 kind of how it can impact the project and really take a building that was older, needed some TLC and needed some rehab and really brought it back to life. Same thing with 451 Dinwiddie. That was a great project. The owners, that building was sitting vacant downtown, pretty visible corridor on Dinwiddie Street for 15 years. So you can imagine how kind of old the building was inside. Were very dark, had good bones, good structure, but wasn't modern. And the owners of that building came in, did a facade, did a interior build out grant and a safety and security grant, and really improved, did new doors, new windows, all inside, new flooring, new plumbing, new painting, and the like, and really did a complete build out. Same thing with AANG. Used to be the old Churchland Library in Churchland, not too far, if you guys know, from MoMAC, Churchland Shopping Center out there. Again, this is a little bit of an older project, a couple years ago, but you see they did a complete build out as well and utilized all of our grant programs to do that. Want to mention a few things before I turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Brian Donahue. These incentive programs, the EDA local incentive programs, are citywide. So anyone can take advantage of these programs in the city of Portsmouth if you have a commercial building and you have an eligible project. And also all of these grant programs that we have are on our website. You can go to www.accessportsmouthva.com. And you can find all the information. You can also find some photos as well of some projects that have been completed under the local incentives programs under these grants. So I want to turn it over now to my colleague, Mr. Brian Donahue.
Thank you, Armand, and good morning to everybody. I want to say thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your interest in business resiliency and learning more about the resources that the Portsmouth Economic Development Office can provide. We're going to switch gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about development funding opportunities that exist presently. We have a new program that's just come about in the last 2 years, which is the Port Host Community Revitalization Fund. Really excited about this program because it allows Portsmouth and other port host communities to leverage resources to make some pretty substantial things happen from a revitalization and redevelopment standpoint. So we were fortunate enough to be included as one of the 5 port host communities in the Commonwealth of Virginia in this new program, which the General Assembly established in 2019. The program is intended to provide financial assistance to sites and structures that face financial challenges and hardships with respect to their redevelopment and revitalization, where without additional funding beyond local support, the projects would not be financially feasible and would never come to fruition. So this program is administered by the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, but locally our Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission oversees the program in working with the Portsmouth Economic Development Office on the administration side. We consider Portsmouth to have port-related properties to an incredible extent. We would define port-related, as you can see here on the slide, is really any non-residential structure built or used for purpose related to port activities. And that's pretty broad. We can define that in many different ways, but essentially anything that moves goods through the port can be considered port related. So that gives us a lot of different possibilities for opportunities to utilize these funds. The properties and structures that would be eligible for the program must exhibit physical or economic blight. So we do look to identify those properties. I think you probably can identify them pretty well on your own. We have the ability to pursue a threshold award for this program of a $150,000 limit at the threshold basis. However, with a statement of need, there is the ability to fund up to $1 million per project. And this is a competitive program between the 5 port host communities. So the minimum grant amount, again, $150,000, but there is the potential to go up to $1 million. This is a program that requires a funding match. So there is a 1-to-1 match requirement. So if you request $150,000, the expectation is that the entity that it would be applying would also be matching that at that same level. Applicants can apply for the program through the Portsmouth Economic Development Office. The program is restricted to those 5 port host communities. So a unit of local government actually needs to submit the application to the state, and that can be done through our office. The application rounds go live every January. They run on a fiscal year, but the application opens January. And you can find out more information to include the application at our website, accessportsmouthva.com. And you can certainly call and speak to any one of our team members who can provide additional information. So great program. We're going to give you an example of a project that was recently awarded Port Host Community funding. And that was the former Cogentrix coal-fired power plant in the West Norfolk area of the city, adjacent to the Port of Virginia's Virginia International Gateway facility. So you can obviously see this is definitely a port-related site because it's immediately adjacent to the port. But we had a real estate investment company that came in looking to develop some industrial space in the city. And they were able to apply through the PPIC and the city of Portsmouth to the program. And this was the first round, which was 2020. And they were successful in receiving an award of $500,000 in this first inaugural round. So we were really excited about that. We are able to assist them with the very, very cost heavy requirement to take the building down, the power plant structure itself, and clear the site to make it ready for development. So this has actually happened. The site is now clear and is ready for new industrial development in the city. So we're marketing this site currently for a new project. So that gives you an example of how the funds and the program can be used. If you have any questions, again, do not hesitate to reach out, and you can find more information at accessportsmouthva.com. We're going to turn it over now to Mr. Moore, and he's going to give you some information on the Virginia Enterprise Zone program.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. The final program we'll talk about this morning is, again, the Virginia Enterprise Zone. This is a very popular program administered through DHCD. It's a collaboration between the state and us as a locality. The city of Portsmouth actually has 2 enterprise zones. You can kind of see them here on the map. Zone 1 covers a substantial area in the city, downtown, midtown. You get a little bit closer out to the Victory Boulevard corridor area. And then Zone 2 is really for our industrial zone. So what would be some of the areas of where PMT, Portsmouth Marine Terminal, and VIG, Virginia International Gateway, and along that industrial corridor. This is something that has been, we have worked on annually. Our first zone came into effect in 2012. And it provides some substantial, again, incentives for something that you're already going to do when you do your project. Again, this is a collaboration between the locality and the state. So some of the programs actually come through the state and some actually come through us as a city. And again, this goes back to some of our themes where these things are reimbursements. They have to be verifiable. Uh, it's a lengthy process from a standpoint of the paperwork that needs to go in. Most of the time, you do need some type of CPA to help you make sure you have that information. But some examples of what you have from an enterprise zone: real estate investment grant is what we call the real property investment grant. This grant, for example, can provide up to $200,000 in incentives for investment in a property, and it all depends on. There's a threshold that's associated with the project and with the program, and depending on if it's a redevelopment or a new construction, will determine the threshold. And a number of these programs, just so you know, are based off of the when you receive your certificate of occupancy. So it's not an immediate reimbursement. So I'll give you an example. If your project were going on right now and you were going through the enterprise zone and the applications actually come through our office from a standpoint of we have to sign off on any type of application. I am the actual enterprise zone administrator for the city. But if you were to have a project going on now, you complete that project and receive your certificate of occupancy by December 31st of this year, then you would apply for the grant money in April of next year. And you'd probably receive that via EFT or ACH right around the first part of July. Subsequently, if you did not finish your project until next year, let's say you finished it January 5th, 2021, you are not eligible to apply for the grant until April of 2022. And I know that can be potentially a little confusing, but our job here in this office is to make sure that any grant that you are eligible for in the enterprise zone, you have to make sure you take advantage of it as best as possible. Every year, right around the June timeframe, we have to submit an annual report to let DHCD know who has taken advantage of the program for that year and who has not. And when someone has not, we have to explain why they haven't. It could be as simple as they didn't even know it was there. So that's on us to make sure that we're advertising this. There's also a job creation grant, and that's quite simple. You create over 5 jobs, you are potentially eligible for approximately $500 per job you create over 5. And that can be stretched over a 2-year time frame. Again, you create the jobs, and then what we will have is a reimbursement for those jobs created. Those are on the state level. From a local level, we have things such as a development fee rebate. This is simply the monies that you would pay to obtain your building permit, plumbing permit, electrical permit, mechanical permit, and any type of fees associated with site review, conditional use permit, rezoning. Basically, those fees, you can receive up to 50% of that cost back to you. And I must say that all of these programs are cash money. Except for there's a tax exemption grant with regards to environmental restoration. But for the most part, these grants are cash money. So you will receive cash back for doing quite simply what you were going to do anyway. And our job, again, is to make sure you obtain those grants. We also have business personal property, machinery and tools. If we're doing something with regards to mixed use, I mean, there are a plethora of those. And this morning, we want to just go over just briefly, what they were and what they have. As you can see, we have a number of, and this is not all inclusive, let me be clear, but we have a number of opportunities and a number of programs that we can utilize to help continue business for you, to make your business more resilient, and to make you really thrive here in the city of Portsmouth. And that's whether you're starting a business, relocating your business, or growing your business. I will say that we don't have a lot of startup money. That's just not something that the state does, other localities do. But if you are looking to go into a new space, you could utilize, for example, our local incentive program. So again, we're glad that you all were able to join us this morning. We have to always push our website accessportsmouthva.com. I'm very excited about the things we have showing on there. And also, little side commercial. If you're not following us on social media, you should. Our LinkedIn and our Twitter. We try to keep that as active as possible. Excuse me. And I myself make sure I'm relaying as much information as we can about what we have going on in this office, because communication is going to be key for what we're going to do to bring this city forward. So don't hesitate to give us a call. We are in the office. Some of us are outside of the office, but no matter what, we're here and ready to assist. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Biedenbaugh so she can navigate the Q&A.
So I made sure the guys knew that they had a quick window because we didn't want to do too much information. I know that was a lot of information, but we wanted to give just a really nice high-level overview. And so much of what we're hearing about resiliency lately is kind of the buzzword resiliency of the COVID resiliency or the pandemic resiliency. But the way we kind of look at it as an office is resiliency as a connection of resources. And that's really what we do as an office. So I want to, while everybody's kind of thinking of questions and before we launch into audience Q&A, so giving everybody a moment to think of their questions, I want to throw out a question to our Portsmouth Economic Development team of connection to resources, relationship management. How do we as an office help our partners connect to resources? Because that's really what resiliency is for us. And that's how we view resiliency, as connection to resources and incentives and other things that we can do. So maybe starting with Mr. Moore, and then Mr. Donahue can jump in, but as everybody in the audience thinks of their questions, maybe comment on how we view resiliency and relationship management.
So from our standpoint, I'm going to say specifically for me, what we try to make sure we push in this office is that communication is the key. We have to make sure that people cannot take advantage of things that they don't know about. So we have to make sure that we're pushing the envelope and make sure we're pushing that message of we have these resources available. There's nothing like being able to assist a business, but at the same time, when you have $1 million, for example, with our COVID grants that we need to get out, because if not, all that money will go back to the state. It's even more of an incentive to make sure we're out here pounding the pavement, literally going door to door and knocking on businesses and saying, hey, have you taken advantage of this? And this was really set up, for example, to help those businesses who may not have the banking relationships that would allow them to get the PPP or the EIDL loans and things that the federal government is giving out. But I think for us and for this office, the big push is to make sure that this information is available and is out, and that any project that we're working on, they know these resources are available.
Okay, Mr. Donahue?
I would echo Robert's statement. I think it's really a matter of making sure that you all, I say you all, the business community, is aware that they can come to us as the city's economic development office, and we will work to make connections between partners. So whether that is a business that's operating in the city that is in need of assistance, whether it be expansion or other challenges maybe that they're facing, we have resources at our disposal, either internally or some external partners that we can connect them with. So whether that's a financial need or could even be a need from a workforce development and staffing standpoint, we have partners that we can put you in touch with and ensure that we are providing the assistance and support you need to grow and excel. So I would just add that, relationships are key, communication is key, and we always want to be your first phone call.
Armand, anything to add?
Not too much to add. I echo both what Mr. Moore and Mr. Donahue said. I think really it's just about getting out there, as Mr. Moore said, and really calling people. Obviously safely if you need to go visit somebody, doing that, but really letting people know and making them aware. Social media, as you know, Jessica, making people aware of these programs. And that just a lot of times takes a call, takes going out there and really pounding the pavement and making sure that people know, and just not waiting for people to kind of come to you, but actually being proactive, and not reactive, and going out there, and really making sure that people know about what we have, what we're doing, in all of our aspects and all of our different social media, phone calls, visits, and just bringing it up. You meet somebody, you talk with somebody about one program, talk with them about another program as well, and say, hey, we also have this program that you may be eligible for. Maybe they're eligible for both, maybe they're not, but they know about what we have and what we're bringing in this office. So I would just add that.
That's a great point. So much of resiliency is knowing about your resources before you need them. And I think that's something that collectively as a region, we're getting better at. So that's great. Ward pointed out that the properties in the LIP slide looked great. I want to spend just a moment on that. Maybe Brian and Armand, you could spend a couple of moments talking about kind of the impact of the LIP program over the past several years. I know we've had quite a few properties impacted with that. So if you could talk about how much funding the program gets each year, and maybe a rough estimate of how many properties or businesses have been impacted over the past several years, because there's quite a few. I don't think that you could ride around Portsmouth without seeing at least a handful of businesses that have used it.
Absolutely. I think when you look at, really it was kind of the EDA's vision in opening the project up citywide that first allowed us. If you look at where we were 2015, 2016, and you see 2017, you see the jump. 2018 till now, we're funding more projects, and that's because the program was opened up citywide. So I think that's the first thing. I mean, we've probably helped, well, to go back a little bit, the program is usually funded at $300,000, and that's starting at our fiscal year. So July 1 of each year to July 1 runs our fiscal year. So there's usually $300,000 available. Obviously, that's subject to funds being available, but that's something that the EDA has funded pretty consistently throughout the years at $300,000. Again, from July 1 of fiscal year to the end of July 1. So our fiscal year run from July 1 to July 1, which is a tad bit different than the calendar years. I would say in the past 2 years since I've been here, and even going back, I mean, we've probably helped in the past 2 years. I would say probably over, I would say over 100 businesses. I would say around 50 to 100 businesses maybe, but probably more over 100 businesses that we've helped. Just because, again, the program's been open, and we've also been pushing it. As I mentioned in my message, the last question, we've been pushing the program. When we go on these business visits and get out here, when we talk to people on the phone, have our Zoom webinar meetings and Microsoft Teams meetings, go-to meetings, we push the program. We push, obviously, our COVID-19 resiliency program, but also our local incentives programs, and let people know that there's money available. Obviously, it's first come, first serve, but there's money available. We're here to help, and we want to get that message out. So I think it's been a combination of those three things: opening up the program and us getting our message out, that these funds are available, and we want businesses to take advantage of them.
Wonderful. Brian, anything to add?
I would just add that we've been very pleased to see that since the program has been expanded from the downtown area to a citywide basis, that we've really seen all facets of the business community utilize the program. So we're, traditionally we had seen a lot of retail and restaurants taking advantage of the LIP program. We've had, office users, healthcare providers, really any type of business you can imagine, even industrial companies that have utilized the program when they've decided to locate in Portsmouth. If you have a business in Portsmouth, a brick and mortar location, you can use this program so long as you're making improvements and expanding your operations. So that should be a consideration for anybody who's looking to invest in their business and grow. They should be thinking about, how can I use these programs to support those efforts. So to Armand's point, we've had many businesses over the last 3 years that we've been able to help since the program's expanded. And this year we have another $300,000. So we're 2 months in to the fiscal year, and we want to make sure we get that money out. Doesn't do any good if it's sitting in a bank account. So we want to help your business grow, and we'd like for you to take advantage of the program. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to our team. Armand can assist you and let you know what you may be eligible for. We're always happy to come out when possible and when appropriate in a safe manner. We can even come out and visit you to tour the property and walk through some of the ideas you might have for improvements and make sure that you know what you're eligible for.
Jessica, one more thing before you move on as well. I want to reiterate what Mr. Moore said about, obviously this is cash money that you can get back, but also this is money for work that you're going to get back that you're probably going to do the work anyway. So you're going to go into these buildings, you're going to have to obviously fix them up, make them to the way you want them, even if it's just painting or flooring or lighting, you're going to have to do some work. So why not take advantage of this program and get some money back for work you were going to already do? So just want to add that.
Absolutely. Thank you both for that. So we have a question from Mr. Sellers, who's on with us, asking to discuss a little bit more about the Virginia Enterprise Zone Job Creation Grant and how we can take advantage of that, how they work in association with some of the other cities' enterprise zones. So Mr. Moore, maybe you could just expound a little bit more about the job creation grants, how those work, and how they work in conjunction with other cities.
So that's a great question. The enterprise zone is different for each city as far as what the locality brings. The state incentives are typically the same because they're coming all out of the same pot of money. From a job creation standpoint, it's every job over 5 jobs created, net new jobs to Virginia and to Portsmouth. So if you're creating a job, if you have several locations, but you create a job in Virginia Beach, that does not count. So for example, but essentially, anytime you come and create a job over a 2-year time frame, and you can set the start of that 2-year time frame, there's some flexibility in that. So that could go from now until 2022, or you can say from 2019 to 2021, I've created 10 jobs. And so those 5 extra jobs will be eligible or could be eligible through the state program to receive that $500 per job reimbursement. I mean, it really is quite that simple. You create the job as long as it's in a qualifying sector. And those jobs can, again, ultimately lead you to, depending on the job, because the job type can also, when it comes to certain wages, certain levels, you can actually receive more money because the average is between $500 to $800 a job. But we say about 500 because that's so on the lower end. That's typically what you see, again, based off of wage. But we don't have that per se in conjunction with other localities in other cities, because not every city or locality has an enterprise zone. We have an enterprise zone. Newport News has an enterprise zone. Norfolk has an enterprise zone, and they're in different areas of the city. So in Norfolk, it's Berkeley, for example. Newport News, you can anticipate that it's over near the 664 corridor. So but from that standpoint, we are all working together to make sure that anytime there's a project, that there's an opportunity to utilize these programs, because again, they're available. And again, we have to make sure that we do these things. So hopefully that answers your question, Mr. Sellers.
Okay, so we did have sorry, Mr. Sellers, are you trying? It looks like you're trying to talk, but we can't hear you.
I think he said thank you.
Okay. you can always type in the chat box too.
Yes.
That works as well.
Yes.
If you have a follow-up, and you can always call in and we can chat offline as well. Okay, so we did have a question just about the entertainment district and the overall status. So maybe if you could give, since this is about resiliency, I don't want to spend too much time on that. Maybe if you could just give a 30-second update on the status of the entertainment district, and then we'll open it up for other resiliency questions.
So the entertainment district is we're very excited about that project. It's moving forward. You know, let me be clear. There are steps that have to be taken in order for us to ultimately have a casino built as part of the entertainment district. And I say as part of because our vision is to move forward with the entertainment district. No matter how or what direction the referendum goes. There is a referendum needed on November 3rd where you would vote for or against a casino gaming establishment as part of that entertainment district. You know, depending on how that goes, if everything is positive in that way, then we move forward with the building of the casino as part of that district. But the district is in an area on Victory Boulevard that we feel is ripe for redevelopment. We have several projects going on surrounding that area between really George Washington Highway and Airline Boulevard. You're going to see a drastic change to that corridor as we go forward. Some projects I can tell you about, entertainment district, some I can't just yet. That's the great thing about economic development. But you will see some dramatic change through there. So we're excited about that.
Okay, I want to take a pause and see if anybody wanted to maybe unmute and ask any questions that they haven't gotten to type yet. So I'm just going to pause for a couple of seconds. Okay, so I wanted to ask Brian about the Port Host Community Grant. So I know that there's a lot of movement in the region with offshore wind. So do you think that projects of that regard are possibly candidates for taking advantage of that grant and that program?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I do think that the Port Host program would be a great opportunity to fund a industrial project that would be in support of offshore wind. So we have a lot of properties, waterfront sites, particularly in Portsmouth, but throughout the region that any of the Port Host communities could utilize this program for. So perhaps there is a facility that needs some improvements to support offshore wind and any type of adaptive reuse and transition for offshore wind. So the program could support on-site improvements in order to facilitate that. So I think that's a great fit. Certainly port related, anything that is coming and going on our waterways is considered to be port related. So I think offshore wind is a great opportunity for that. We do have some older properties that need some TLC, and this program could definitely be used for that. I really think that, again, as broad as the definition is, there are a lot of different activities that can qualify, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your typical industrial type of project. So whether it's offshore wind, it could even be something that was formerly related to a port use. It's pretty broad, so we have a lot of latitude with the state. And what I would suggest is that if there is anybody listening and viewing today, reach out to us. If you have any thoughts or ideas, we'd be happy to entertain them. But offshore wind, absolutely, that's what we're hoping for.
Wonderful. I'd like to keep these on time, so I'm going to ask for one final thought from our team. I'm going to go in alphabetical order by first name and put Armand on the hot seat. So any final thoughts
Absolutely. First, just want to thank everybody for taking the time to be on the call this morning. I know we'll also have it on social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, and everything, so people who didn't have an opportunity will be able to. Just want to reiterate what is said here. We're here, we're open for business. I know that's a cliche, but we are ready and able to assist anybody through our website, accessportsmouthva.com, or just call the office or email one of us. And also, we're ready to get out and let people, as many people know about these great programs that we have. So just want to let everybody know we're here, we're open and ready to assist everyone in the region and beyond.
So again, we think that we have some opportunities to assist our business community at this time, certainly as the health pandemic continues. Businesses will be looking going forward at trying to determine how they can transition for the future, and that's really what resiliency amounts to. We have resources in-house that we've shared a little bit about today, but I think maybe even greater resources would be our partners that we have in the region and throughout the state. I see Steve Holcomb's on the call today with Gen Edge. So we have partners that are out there that specialize in many different areas, whether it is your staffing and workforce needs, whether you have financial needs, training requirements, or your business may be transitioning to manufacture something like PPE. There are folks out there like Steve who can help. And the best way to get connected with them is to contact us. We'll help to figure out what your needs are and put you in the right direction.
All right, Mr. Moore.
Yes, I'm bringing up the rear. I'd like to say and take it from a different approach. First, definitely want to say thank you to everyone for being on the meeting today. I'm very excited about what we have going on in Portsmouth. And I talked about earlier some of the common themes of our resources. But another common theme that you will see in this office is teamwork and the word team. Mr. Donahue just touched on it. Mr. Smith just touched on it. We couldn't do this without the team. We have the best economic development team. I wouldn't trade them for anybody in the world. But at the same time, we consider you all to be part of that team. So whether it's Steve, as we talked about, whether it's Mr. Valentine, I saw Ms. James on here as well. The business community is part of our team. So I'm going to ask a favor, or two actually. I'm hoping as an extension of our team, you will let your colleagues know and the rest of the business community know about what we have and what we offer as a locality. So I'm going to charge you with that need to go out and really speak to and tell a friend kind of situation. Number two, I would ask that if there are other programs that you know of that we're not taking advantage of, maybe directly from a locality level or from a state level, let us know. I see Mr. Hillman was letting us know about some clean cities initiatives that are available out there for charging stations. I really do think we need to upgrade some of our infrastructure to make sure we include electric vehicles and things of that nature. We should have some of those things in our parking garages and sometimes in our parking areas on the street. So those opportunities that we may not be hitting on or touching on directly, please let us know. Again, want to thank you this morning for being here. Thank you for taking the time and spending your Friday morning with us. If you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, our emails are on the website. I think we're one of the few that have all of our contact information literally on the website. And follow us on social media. Call Lee Ogilby, my executive assistant, and reach out to her and set up a meeting so we can have a conversation. We're anxious to talk to you. We're anxious to help you as best we can and help you start, locate, and grow a business in Portsmouth. But you will always hear us say is the smart move for business.